all about flipping. For 30, 40 years, I've been watching flippers. Everything's wonderful, and then they get 10 years in jail, and they flip on whoever the next highest one is, or as high as you can go. It almost ought to be outlawed. It's not fair. If somebody defrauded a bank and he's going to get 10 years in jail or 20 years in jail, but if you can say something bad about Donald Trump and you'll go down to 2 years or 3 years, which is the deal he made.
The president also taking aim again at Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who recused himself from the Mueller probe.
The Dems are very strong in the Justice Department. I put an Attorney General that never took control of the Justice Department, Jeff Sessions, never took control of the Justice Department, and it's a sort of an incredible thing.
Sessions deciding to fire back at Trump's latest slam, vowing the Justice Department won't be improperly influenced by politics. Meanwhile, Senator Lindsey Graham causing a stir in the nation's capital by predicting the end may be near for the embattled AG.
I think there will come a time, sooner rather than later, where it will be time to have a new face and a fresh voice at the Department of Justice. After the election, I think there will be some serious discussions about a new Attorney General. Replacing him before the election, to me, would be a non-starter. But the idea of having a new Attorney General in the first term of President Trump's administration, I think is very likely.
That's how you set the cat amongst the pigeons. Jesse, what do you think of all this?
Well, listen, a lot of people are unhappy with Jeff Sessions' performance. He has not done what he was supposed to do with regards to leaks. I think Reality Winner is the only person he really prosecuted, and there's been a lot of misconduct at the FBI and the Department of Justice that I don't believe he wants to get in the middle of, because he doesn't want to get caught in some sort of obstruction probe himself. He never should have recused. He bowed to the pressure of the swamp. He made a mistake by forgetting some random meeting for 30 seconds with a Russian ambassador, and then all of a sudden he caved. So I understand Trump's concern there. With the Michael Cohen thing, I don't really believe the president wants to criminalize flipping. It's just his way of saying he doesn't like it. And I understand what happened. I mean, Cohen was looking at almost 20 years in prison, and his wife was in the crosshairs too, because the wife also signed off on their tax returns. And he's a good father. He's a family man, so he doesn't want to spend 20 years in jail. If he can spend 3 by doing what the prosecutors want and saying that, yes, Mr. Trump did this because he wanted to help himself with the election, I'll sign anything. And that's how prosecutors advance in their careers. Prosecutors don't sit around and not prosecute people. They prosecute famous people, and that's how they move up, and they want a scalp here. And this is just one step on the way to potentially Donald Trump. Now, there is nothing wrong with paying a woman to not say something which could be personally damaging to you or to your family. If he pays this money out of his personal piggy bank so she keeps quiet, that is not a legitimate campaign expenditure. And John Edwards faced the exact same thing. Prosecutors went after him because some rich folks gave him $700,000 to cover up his affair and protect his wife. It went to the jury, and the jury said, you know what, this had nothing to do with the political campaign. This had everything to do with trying to save his reputation and his marriage. So the law is actually on Donald Trump's side on this. I don't see this going anywhere except politically damaging the president. He's wasting a ton of political capital dealing with these massive amounts of investigations and the criminalization of politics. And it really is starting to take a toll on him. And it's disappointing and it's sad.
We'll go to a prosecutor for response.
Thank you. And I've never prosecuted a famous person who I've had to flip someone on. All of mine are murderers. So prosecutors, it's a common tool. The most recent one I can remember was a getaway driver in a murder case. You know, you take the least culpable person and you flip them because you want to know what's going on at the time of the crime. Having said that, you've got to have corroborating evidence, plenty of it. And the jury, the difference here is a jury gets to hear, hey, you gave this guy a deal. Hey, this guy got this deal and he's not going to prison at all. And so they get to hear everything about it. And you flipped him and he was part of the murder, but he didn't actually commit the murder. In the other case with the president, all it's going to be is in a potential memo for impeachment. So where's the credibility of somebody getting to cross-examine him? It's not. And they're taking what Michael Cohen says as fact. If in fact they do an impeachment memo, they're putting it in there. Oh, he said this, therefore it must be true. And once it's out in the media, it's out there. And sure, down the road, Congress will get a chance to jump in on it and weigh in. But by then, it's already taken as fact. So that's what troubles me with how they're doing this.
Juan, you want to weigh in here?
I'd love to. So, first and foremost, there is no deal. Cohen spoke in open court, and said what he said. He has no deal with Mueller. He has no deal with the Southern District of New York's federal prosecutors. He made a plea deal because he understood and said he was guilty of having committed these crimes, and then named the president as someone who had directed him to make these payments. And what we've learned today in terms of what American media, the National Enquirer, has done, that he was involved in an effort to cover up these things, Jesse, in advance of the campaign, that these payments were made in cooperation with a media company to protect the president. They had some interesting language in there. They said this was basically a tripwire, so that they would learn of anybody who was coming to potentially embarrass the president, and they would stop it by, what do they call it, catch and kill, pay and kill, or something like that. Mm-hmm. Catch and kill these stories. Mm-hmm. Now, this is, to me, to hear the president talking about Cohen in this manner and suggest, of course, Manafort's okay, but Cohen is a rat. It sounds to me like we're talking about a mob boss in The Godfather or something. It's unbelievable.
Greg, do you want to talk about this, or would you like to hear one more piece of sound from the president about impeachment?
I'd like to talk about anything you want me to talk about, including that tape.
Okay, let's listen to that, and you can comment on any of it and all of it. This is the president talking about what might happen if they try to impeach him.
Well, I guess it says something like high crimes and all. I don't know how you can impeach somebody who's done a great job. I'll tell you what, if I ever got impeached, I think the market would crash. I think everybody would be very poor, because without this thinking, you would see numbers that you wouldn't believe in reverse. Numbers in reverse.
Well, you know what? He might not be wrong about the economy, because impeachment is not going to be helpful. But it also could get better, because then you end up with Pence. And this is what I think the right is missing. They have to be drilling it into the left's heads that, okay, we'll take Pence. Because, by the way, you won't lose. You'll get two presidents. You'll have President Pence, and you'll also have Trump as a national folk hero. You think Trump's going to go away if he's impeached? Hell no. He's going to be right there every day. He's going to be on TV every day. You're going to have him, and he's going to be bigger than Pence. It'll be hilarious, actually. Now, about the David Pecker stuff. Okay, so it's all about suppressing tales of romps with a Playboy model and so on. I haven't seen a trail of victims here. I see nothing but consensual adults who got paid, okay? You can kill stories. I don't think that's against the law. And I'm like 323 million people out there. I am not a lawyer. So a lot of this stuff goes right over my head. But I'll tell you this. I listened to Al Dershowitz, and if you watched him on Bret Baier Special Report last night, clearest analysis. If Trump told Cohen to make a contribution, that's legal. He's allowed. If Cohen did it himself, that's a crime by Cohen. Right. Therefore, Trump's fine. Trump is not an unindicted co-conspirator, because if you're lawful and the other person isn't, that's not a crime. At worst, the failure to report the contribution, I'm doing an Al Dershowitz Cliff's Notes, is a misdemeanor at most. It's not a high crime. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I think that I'm so glad that Dershowitz can explain what the media cannot explain. The media immediately jumps and says, oh, there's a broken law. As for Sessions, all this palace intrigue is tedious and boring, and it only serves to tell the American public that we are living in good times. If this is what we're talking about, we have a great economy. We have bigger paychecks. We have low unemployment. We have what seems to be like temporary peace. So we're talking about this palace intrigue, and the media is so frustrated.
But the president tweets about Jeff Sessions threatening to fire him. I mean, it's not just people.
Well, that's palace. I call
it's not leaks. I mean, it's the president actually said it.
Well, that's part of the Trump package. He's not just your president. He's your uncle. He's your cab driver. He's your bartender. You ask him anything, he's got an opinion. I've said it before. He's like a 6-hour drive to an hour at the beach.
Well,
and that's why people love him. And that's why people love him. And he has a target on his head from Mueller. And anybody who gets in the way is collateral damage, hence the immunity, hence all these plea deals. They're going to do anything they can to get to the president of the United States.
Wait a second. What about the truth? What about having the American people understand what took place? He goes after Sessions today. What kind of man is this? Well, Jesse, his intent is that the Justice Department serve his needs, not serve the American people.
Yep.
To me, this is corruption.
I'm Greg, by the way. That's
Mr.
Jesse.
Holder was not the most independent person at the Justice Department.
Here we go.
There is a
Now
very
we're
big
on
double
Eric
standard
Holder.
here because President Obama accepted $2 million in illegal campaign contributions.
Get out. It's
and
not
had
even
to pay
similar.
a nearly $400,000 fine. That was not treated as a felony.
Jesse, it's
that
not
was treated as an administrative violation.
Jesse, this is a matter of
the dossier that was paid for
Jesse,
by
you won't
Hillary
even let
Clinton
somebody else
and laundered
talk
through.
because you just
let me
think-
finish. And laundered through
You
a
asked
law
him.
firm and laundered through a law firm. Where was that recorded? And how is that not a legal campaign contribution by a corporation?
You know the
Juan?
quote of the
There's
day?
a big double standard, and you don't want to admit it.
Let me tell you the quote of the day. I have lots of friends involved in this flipping thing. You know who said that? Donald Trump, as if he was a mob boss.
All right.
No.
I hate to leave it there, but they're yelling, and we got to go. The Kavanaugh confirmation battle heats up. Democrats push to block hearings for the Supreme Court nominee amid legal drama surrounding President Trump. Up next.
Maybe midnight's just misunderstood. So nothing good ever happens after midnight. Why did it always
Brett Kavanaugh on Capitol Hill today meeting with Senate Democrats, the Supreme Court nominee pressing the flesh while some top members of the party are calling to delay or block his confirmation hearings in the wake of the Cohen and Manafort cases.
The Senate Judiciary Committee should immediately pause the consideration of the Kavanaugh nomination.
To me, it seems that at the very minimum, we should be withholding this decision on the Supreme Court nominee until the air is cleared.
I am considering all the tools that are available to delay this nomination. I will not meet with Judge Kavanaugh. I did not plan to meet with him. I will not meet with him now.
So we have a situation here where the Democrats are making the case that a president who is obviously suspected of possibly being involved after the Cohen pleading with some kind of conspiracy should not be allowed to put a man on the court who would then subsequently have to judge about whether a president can be subpoenaed, maybe even indicted. Dana, what do you think?
Well, I think if they're trying to make the case, but they're making it poorly because they've already tried this. Initially, when the president had the opportunity to name somebody, even before it was Kavanaugh, they said, well, no president under federal investigation should be allowed to do this. Well, that didn't work. This is not going to work. Only the people who have already said they're going to vote against him have canceled meetings with him or who are saying this. You have Manchin, Donnelly, and Heitkamp, 3 Democrats who are up for re-election in their Senate races. They've already publicly disagreed with Schumer and said, no, we're going to go forward with this. And I also think that the Democrats are going to show up because they are not going to miss an opportunity to be on television for 4 days.
Right.
They're hypocrites. If they're saying that they don't want to meet with him, if he's not legitimate enough to meet with, then how could you possibly go to a hearing and question him? Are you going to skip those hearings? I doubt it.
All right, so we have a lawyer here. What do you think?
Well, I know Brett Kavanaugh. I know Dana knows Brett Kavanaugh very well, too. You know, when I look at a judge, and especially a justice, 3 things: ethics, intelligence, and humility. And that man exemplifies all of them.
Well, couldn't
He's
I say
humble,
that about Merrick
he's
Garland?
Down to earth.
Couldn't a
Yeah.
Democrat say that about Merrick Garland, who was blocked for a year?
Except Juan, this is our nominee right now for the U.S.
Oh, I
Supreme
see.
Court, and that's what I'm talking about. And for Blumenthal to say, oh, let's wait till the air is cleared, give me a break. They're never going to clear the air with President Trump. Never, ever, ever. And I mean, this is something, like Dana said, they want to hang their hats on this. They want to drag it out. It's not going to work. And what do you say about Justice Breyer got confirmed during the time when President Clinton's records were subpoenaed under a grand jury. What's the difference?
So, Jesse, we have a situation where there are some papers, and the Democrats want access to all of Brett Kavanaugh's papers while he was at the White House. Is that a legitimate request in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, they deserve access to things that are important for them to make a decision on whether or not to confirm him. But if it's some sort of fishing expedition to drag this thing out and go where they're not really supposed to go, then they're just playing politics. And they're going to use any tool in their toolbox, Juan, to delay and, make hay out of this nominee. But they're not going to be able to obstruct because they don't have the majority. And that's because the American people wanted a Republican Senate, and that's the way the game's played. But it really is damaging. I have to reiterate, the president's political capital, to have all of these investigations weighing on him, and it gives the Democrats an excuse, a political excuse to obstruct more than they usually would, and they were already obstructing a lot. And I think if you look back, the special prosecutors under Clinton and Bush and now Trump have all been big mistakes, in my opinion, and have not led to the type of results that they were intended to. They never gotten to the bottom of anything critical. I don't believe the American people have looked at the results of these year-long, 2-year-long investigations and said, oh, that was worthwhile. That got to the bottom of what that was intended to. This is just another example of special prosecutors weighing in on political matters that could be handled by judges or other administrative agencies.
So the president's above the law, Jesse?
Not above the law. There's always impeachment, Juan.
Oh,
and that's where,
wait a minute. Are you a Democrat now?
No, but that's where these things should be handled.
Oh, okay.
In a political arena, not a criminal and court arena.
Greg, what do you think? Jesse's calling for impeachment.
I think the curtain is pulled back. It's not about collusion. It's not about meddling. It's about stopping an effective presidency.
Right.
He gets another Supreme Court justice. That's effective. If the Democrats weren't hypocrites, they wouldn't stop with Kavanaugh. They would try, by their logic, they should suspend all of Trump's powers, right?
They want to.
Yeah, I know. So no trade talks, no foreign policy, no Medal of Honor ceremonies. Just go for the whole thing. And to Pam's point, if we decided to pause all politics until you cleared the air around all politics, we would never have any politics. So I'm for that. Let's just stop the politics until we finally clear the air. Because the people that are polluting the air the most are the Democrats. I mean, they have political flatulence.
Oh, wow. I see. So we just normalized Trump's behavior and all the corruption and all the plea deals.
Yeah, he was.
You should tease.
Yeah, because you guys don't want to talk about this.
No, we're being
really
young girl
Greg's
simply
monologue.
walking
Talk about
her
dishonesty.
dog lands her mom in hot water with child services. Greg's got this outrageous story next.
We've become a nation of narcs. When an 8-year-old girl walked her dog in a Chicago suburb recently, someone called the cops. The mom, Corey Wyden, was investigated for child neglect. They didn't charge her or the dog, named Marshmallow, an apt description of what many citizens have become. According to the Chicago Tribune, this is happening more. Moms getting targeted for investigation after their kids are spotted alone. In America today, that's abuse. Now, if that were true when I was young, they would have locked up my parents for good. I walked to and from school alone, and that was in my early 30s. But as a kid, a typical summer day was spent alone, outside, near a creek, investigating old sheds, perusing magazines found in park hedges. I couldn't afford Playmates. Adventure was around every corner. It's amazing that I lived through it. I wish I could say the same for my twin brother, Rocco. Those little red berries look safe to eat. Anyway, targeting a mom because her kid walks the dog is obviously an absurd waste of time, but we live in a time where absurd waste of time is the norm. I mean, they gave Michelle Wolf a TV show and Paul Krugman a column. And while we avoid speaking up about real crime, the mayor of Chicago is a one-man social disaster, it's just easier to point a finger at a mom down the street. I mean, we're going after a president for paying a lady to stop yapping about a tryst. That's the media version of this story, non-crime as crime. And if you thought I couldn't tie Trump into this story, then you've totally underestimated me. Yes! I know what everybody here was thinking. How did he do that? He brought Trump into the... It's magical. A lot of narking going on, Pam. I know you are a prosecutor, but I hate narcs. I hate snitches. But you say that they have to, once, if you get that phone call, you gotta respond.
You know, in the world in which we live, you would all want the same thing. If you receive a call,
Yeah.
DCF, Department of Children and Families, my office, Children's Legal Services, we have to investigate.
Yeah.
You know, a child, and this was ridiculous. This is a neighbor who I probably had a beef with the mother.
Yes, yeah.
But you've got an adorable little girl and Marshmallow taking a walk around the block.
Innocent Maltese.
Or an innocent Maltese and an innocent little girl and a mom who homeschools her kids, like the best mom in the world they chose to pick on. But yes, it has to be thoroughly investigated. The good news is you can't take a child out of a home without probable cause. But think how stressed the mother is getting that knock on her door. But that's what happens. And at least DCF, they did their job. They looked into it. They said there was nothing there at all.
Okay, but it took them 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay, so that is an
That's a long
emotional and
time.
a financial
It is.
drain. 2 weeks is a lifetime.
yes.
And you think of totally draining their emotions, their finances, and all because, so
point.
she's 8 years old, she's short. I know a little bit about that. So she looks like she's 5. That's why they get the phone call. Does it really take 2 weeks for the investigators to say, oh, we see what happens here? Okay, ma'am, we're so sorry to bother you, and to walk away.
The hardest part, I think, too, is for the parents, they call the little girl's school. So now you've got parents who have a school
and I have to say this,
contacted.
if the authorities are so concerned about this neighborhood, then they should have police presence there 24/7.
And it was a safe neighborhood by all
You
accounts.
can tell by
It was
looking
a
at it.
Super
Well,
safe
you know, they had a
neighborhood.
situation like this near where I live in Tacoma Park, Maryland. And but the kids were walking home from school like young Gregory in his heyday. But the response from the community was, you know, hey, wait a second, if something happens, you know, then you'd be guilty if you didn't say, hey, I saw these very young children by themselves, unsupervised on the street.
But she had a little dog with her. It's not like
It doesn't
she's not
matter
on a leash.
because
The
guess
dog
what?
could have dog napped her.
Bad guys might even say, oh, we know what time this little girl is out walking. But I don't like it because it's contrary to not only to the way we all grew up who are sitting here, but if you look at the crime statistics, it's contrary to how many kids are actually
True.
attacked or kidnapped or anything like that.
From the Washington Post, children taken by strangers or slight acquaintances, 1/100% of all missing children. It says that they know the kidnappers, Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I would roam around for hours unattended.
Did you have magazines
I
like
turned
Greg?
out all right. And then when I remember moved into a neighborhood in the suburbs, we did a little map of the sex offenders to find out if there was any perverts in the hood we were moving into. So times have changed. I've been narked on and have also narked. I've called because of loud noises or parties when I've been trying to sleep. But I've also had people narc on me for being loud and obnoxious. And I don't like being narked on. I don't, but I will reserve the right to narc when it affects my sleep habits.
You tried to shut down parties, really? Loud music? Weren't
total
you young
hypocrite.
ones?
Yeah, I was. I still am, I hope. But you know what? I need my beauty rest,
You know what? I think it's hard to be a parent now. It's just hard to be a parent. And your child can be alone only when they're playing video games.
It's
But
like
if you
you're
go
afraid to
outside...
make a joke, you're afraid to do anything, you're afraid to let your kids take a walk. And also, you think little dogs can't attack? Like, they're the worst.
No, they are. They're
the worst.
All dogs think they're wolves. It's not like they know that they've been changed, right? They don't know that they've gone through transition.
They don't know when they're sleeping
still
in the
wolves.
bed.
Aren't they still wolves in their head?
Yes.
Like a Chihuahua and a Doberman still think they're part of the same group, which is why you see them sometimes doing weird stuff.
Do you think we're responsible in the media the way anything involving any little kid, we just go bananas, and then I think it scares people.
The exaggeration of that kind of coverage can lend people to think that it's a bigger problem.
And also, this is a mild case. There are certain situations where people are put in jail. I know somebody who was shackled and basically put in a jail cell. They let him out. They said he could leave at 1 p.m. They kept him there and didn't process him until 2 a.m.
What are you talking about? A parent?
Yes, a parent and there was one of these calls. You got to do the investigation. The guy was held in jail for 2 days, and then they're like, "Oh, we're sorry. Sorry about that."
I would take matters into my own hands. If I know I got narked on by a neighbor like this, I would go around the block and knock on every door with my daughter and say, "It was you, wasn't it?" And try to see if I could get someone to flip.
It's just like another episode of Water's World where you go out on the street with your mic. It was you.
Hey.
All right, President Trump pushing for stricter immigration laws after the murder of Molly Tibbetts.
Molly is this beautiful young girl.